So how are you doing today, Christian?
Not bad, barring the
Yeah.
fact that we have awful rainy weather, which I tend to not like, but today's a good day. How about yourself, Jen?
I am doing all right. I just finished getting my taxes ready for my accountant, so I'm happy.
Hey, almost exactly on time. That's even barring
Well,
the
they're
news.
not due until July now,
Yeah.
so but I need them for other things. So the reason
Good for you.
I've got you on today with us is that I wanted to talk to you about home inspection. You've been my inspector for many years and
Yes,
always
ma'am.
appreciated the way that you did your reports and work with my clients. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to get you on and just talk in general to people who might not know what home inspectors do. So tell me a little bit about what your qualifications are. Do you have licensing that's required? What's your background?
First, let me start with I've been doing this for exactly 20 years. So what the state may require now or the Fed may require now is a lot different than when I started. At this point, I'm actually grandfather claused into anything that has to do with home inspections. Truly, I've been doing it long enough to where they look to us and say, so what should we ask the next group to do when we train them? Uh, my answer to that is we're responsible for doing, in my association, the American Society of Home Inspectors, we're responsible for doing 250 inspections plus you have to pass the national exam. In the state of Pennsylvania, we don't require licensing yet. We've tried to push legislation for that several times. However, much like what's going on now, it's going to be on the back burner for a while.
Right.
So really what we try to do is advance the association through education and training. Just get
Okay.
everybody to stick to continuing education and constantly train.
Okay. Good. So when you train on generally on all systems and constructions of homes and all that. So you kind of know maybe not all the intricate details that a plumber or an electrician or somebody of that nature might know, but you know enough that if there's something that doesn't look right, you can call it. And if it really doesn't look right, you can say, hey, you better bring somebody else in to look at it.
And that's exactly it. We look to individual experts. We have guys from the HVAC industry, from the plumbing industry, from roofing, everything that you could possibly think of. They bring in an expert in one field, in one group, in one company, one manufacturer, and they'll educate us on all aspects that have to do with a certain heating system or a certain manufacturer of plumbing lines. Uh, we have a guy from Maryland. His name is Kenny Hart, who is probably one of the top plumbers in the nation that nobody's ever heard of, except for people like me who go and train with him and get educated by him, because he's not only an incredible plumber, he's a great communicator.
Okay, great. So you are the very, you're not the expert in particular systems, but the generalist. Yes?
Correct. Correct. We do everything under the guise of a general home inspection.
Right.
We are going to go through anything and everything we can to try to figure out, does it seem right? Is it right? Was it treated right? Was it maintained? Was it taken care of? Is it in poor condition? If it's in bad condition, what's wrong with it? And in most cases, why?
Okay. Now, you also, not all inspectors, but you personally are a termite inspector certified too, correct?
Yes, that's actually a different one. Yes, that you must be licensed for in the state of Pennsylvania. So everything for that really comes from Penn State.
Okay.
Everything that has to do with agriculture obviously goes right through Penn State University, which then is covered by the DEP and EPA because you're required to be a treatment specialist
Mhm.
in the state of Pennsylvania. But that's a separate licensure.
Okay. So when somebody's looking for a home inspector, what
Mhm.
questions should they be asking?
The real questions for me are always, how long does it take you to do what you do, given, we'll say, the square footage of the house or the age of the house? And are you really going to get on the roof? Uh, if I'm the prospective buyer, I want somebody who's going to look at chimneys, liners, roofing, systems, components, and the amount of time that they spend there is really what you're paying for. The inspection in and of itself isn't a car. It isn't a product. It's a person and their time. So that's really what's most important to me.
Okay. Now, the inspections these days, the general ones that people get, they get a general home inspection. They get termite usually, and often they get radon. Radon is something, I think in our experience, you sub that out to other people.
Yes.
And what's just the basic explanation of why people test for radon?
The real explanation is because it's a potentially lung cancer causing particulate that goes through the air. So the real answer is we test for radon decay particulates.
Okay.
When it's tested, you're really testing for what's in the ground beneath your home. You're not testing the air, you're not testing air quality, you're not testing what you breathe, you're testing what's beneath your home. And every single property has a different geography. So based on that, it'll determine what the radon readings are and the potential for you having that gas in your home.
And in Pennsylvania, the level which you should not go beyond with the EPA, that's 4.0. What is
4.0 picocuries per liter, as in Madam Curie.
I always
Yes.
get that one wrong. Yeah, okay. And it's just because in a house, that gas, which is normally existing around us all the time, is just too concentrated, or can be too concentrated inside the box of the house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you don't want it within the envelope or the building envelope of the house. So most radon remediation systems actually just take the air from beneath the home and redirect it to a point above the home. All it is a fan system that circulates the air from beneath to above.
Okay. And generally in Pennsylvania, that the seller is the one that needs to put that in prior to settlement, although that is a negotiable item.
Yes. And also incredibly common because this is also where we discovered what it is.
Right. In ordinary circumstances, because we know we're not in ordinary circumstances right now with COVID-19, what would a home inspector, what would you tell a home buyer to bring to a home inspection?
Primarily, we do the same thing. We tell them to bring every question. Usually the aunt, uncle, or the more knowledgeable person within your family that you trust. I want you to bring your contractor, your buddy, your uncle, whoever it is that's going to give you a sense of security in what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's expected to know the mechanicals, the systems, the electrical, what's going on in a property. But if you have somebody there that you trust, that's the person that I want you to bring with you.
Okay. That just makes your life easier, because if you,
Yes.
if you say the right things to them and they can say, yeah, that's right, that's good.
They're all on the same team. Really,
Yep.
it's the truth is I want the entire team there because we're all on the same team. I'm working for the person purchasing the home.
Okay. And once you've done the inspection, what is it that you provide to them?
First thing I hand them is usually a flash drive covered with photos.
Okay.
So it's a 4 gig or an 8 gig flash drive at this point. As the times have changed, so have I. And typically we'll hand them about 150 up to about 600 photos of the property based on size, age, and conditions of the home.
Okay. And then your report goes through what you've probably already talked to them verbally while you're walking through the home with them, but it reiterates it and puts it in terms of what are maintenance issues, what are repair issues, what are major defects. Material defects is the official term.
Absolutely. Material defects usually take the top of the list, and we put those into a summary. Most folks don't care about anything else that I write in the report other than what's in the material defect section. However, I always recommend reading the entire report start to finish. Whether or not folks choose to do that is up to them. But really what we're trying to do is sum up the conditions of the home, good or bad. Doesn't matter what it is. We wanted you to be more familiar with everything by the time we're done.
And you include pictures in the report that show the items that you're calling out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
for most of the material defects, we want to have something that indicates a pretty simple illustration, because frankly, photos don't have as much interpretation to them as the narrative might.
Right. Okay. And your summary, and this is not with all home inspectors, but I know with your reports, you do in fact kind of put a price range that
Yes.
particular things you're calling out might cost, which is helpful to us when we're negotiating, obviously. And
We
just
try.
gives people a good idea of what they should be expecting.
No, and that's a great point. What we're trying to do is provide a general idea of what it's going to cost to address that issue. Again, if you say there's a broken window can be $100 repair of the glass, or it could be a $3,000 picture window. Which one is it?
Right.
So it helps to give a guide. It's not supposed to be a specific or an exact estimate. We're not the contractor doing the work, but we're trying to give you a good idea of where you should end up given the repairs that we found during the course of the inspection.
Okay. And I know that one question that comes up often in inspections is about mold.
Oh, yes.
You're not a mold inspector, right? So what you generally do
Yeah.
is if you see something that looks like it has the potential to be, then you simply call that out and say you may or may not want to bring in an expert to identify.
Exactly. So the environmental conditions are specifically precluded from our industry. Mold, mildew, asbestos even. We have to note that this is a suspected asbestos containing material. In mold, in particular, anything that's growing on a cellulose-based food source or anything that comes from a tree, we have to note that it's all conducive conditions and it appears to be bioorganic growth. That's actually another thing that if we do get back to our legislative side in a short period of time, that's going to be included in all of the Pennsylvania state home inspections. They're going to be required to identify any conducive conditions for mold and mildew, which is actually new to our legislation.
Okay. Another twist that
Yes.
we have to look forward to.
And it's coming soon. So
right.
I'd expect that one in about a year.
So now that we are in these lockdown situations with COVID-19, and I know that in Pennsylvania, they put out a new thing last week saying they moved the date by which inspectors and appraisers are allowed to go in and do what they do according to contract dates. I think the March 18th was the cutoff. Anything that was under contract before March 18th,
Yes.
you guys are still allowed to go in and take a look at. But you're not doing it in the same way that you've done it before. So when you go in and do an inspection now, who's there?
Well, that's just it. There is no more business as usual.
Right.
So my favorite thing to have, like I mentioned, was the confidant, the trusted individual in your family or friend that you always want to have there. Well, the answer now is preferably nobody goes to any inspection if there is one performed.
Right.
And if you do, it's social distancing, it is gloves, masks, booties on your feet. And if one person is there, they must maintain distance and they will not get what I feel is that same personal communication that we had up until recently. But
So
the answer
are
is,
you doing that now, or are you instead doing things like this where you meet people virtually and walk them through the inspection?
this is our new normal. So the new normal is to communicate via Zoom, FaceTime, Google Meet, whatever your preference is.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be the new way to run over the home inspection, because towards the end of the inspection, this also gives me the ability to call folks once or twice. So if I'm up on the roof,
Right.
I'm able to call and we're able to video conference from that point, depending on the type of roof that the house has. And then we can review the chimney, the liners, the walls, the roofing, the conditions, and then we can reconvene in about, an hour or so and have another meeting.
Okay, good. So you're still getting it done.
For what we can, yes.
With all these difficulties and staying safe. Other than those, what are the major adjustments that you're seeing to COVID-19 right now? I mean, I'm assuming your business has gone down like mine has. Mine
Oh
has
yeah.
gone down to next to nothing. I'm not allowed to go anywhere.
We're the same boat. And again, we are a general feeder industry from the Association of Realtors. You
Right.
guys control really what we do. That's why our legislation, or the way that we're now being told to do home inspections, really is coming from PAR, from the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors.
Okay.
Up until last week, the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, which I didn't know existed up until last week, were able to tell us when we could do inspections. So what they did was they requested that we close offices and show up just one person.
Right.
We could work with one client and meet what we now call COVID standards, which is gloves, masks, etc.
Okay.
However, it's a very limited industry at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
we're at 5% of what we've done for the past 20 years, maybe. And I don't even think it's 5%.
All dealing with the changes, and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
and we'll see how long it has to go on. Moving forward, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, it's all the best guess for all of us in the industry. What do you see happening once we are allowed out of our cages?
Once we are released, I believe it's going to be a little bit more like it is now. I think the past is what it was.
Yeah.
Right now, in order for us to move forward, everything's going to be within arm's reach. There's going to be a lot more Zoom meetings, a lot more phone calls. Actually, it's going to be a lot more similar to what it was 20 years ago when I started, which was, phone calls 10 times a day and no photos, no videos on site, but now we have video conferencing, which will help reduce some of that.
Okay, good. Just in general, I like to end my interviews on a positive note. What's your most positive thing today? What's the thing you feel grateful for?
What I'm most grateful for is the four of us are still healthy. My wife and my kids. Nobody has a dry cough. Nobody's suffering any health issues.
Yeah.
And frankly, no, that's a really good way to start.
Good. In case anybody wants to get a hold of you after they've seen your lovely face on this video, what's the best way to reach you? Do you have a website, a phone number, email address that we can, give to people so they can contact you?
Always, thank you. And I apologize to those who had to see my face on this video. You can reach us at titanhomeinspect.com, or you can call the office at 610-937-5490. Pretty much anytime, night or day, we're always working.
Very good. Well, I look forward to working with you in person again sometime in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, it's nice to be able to get together with you this way, and I'm glad everybody is good and healthy. And please stay that way.
Thank you. We're trying our best, and I hope you do the same too.